So how important is it to find the right monologue?
Well, my cousin picked a bad monologue once and died. I mean, it was a couple of years later, but I think it's related.
I'm a giant marmoset.
And I'm 3 2x4s in the shape of Kentucky.
And this is Theater Babble. The most common question that I get asked by students and actors is, how do I find a monologue? I'm always happy to help by giving advice or even suggesting monologues or plays. But to learn how to develop your acting skill and to take the mystery out of finding suitable monologues, we should take a closer look at what that actor is actually trying to communicate. That they don't know what makes a good monologue, they don't know their type,
Or that they want you to do the work for them.
maybe. But it can be challenging to find a good monologue, especially if you don't know what you should be looking for. And to make matters worse, what you should be looking for greatly changes between roles, plays, and directors.
So you're saying it's hopeless and that I should exclusively do Hamlet soliloquies?
No, of course not. There is a foolproof way to find good monologues. Read plays. Read a lot of plays. See, it's not enough to just find a good monologue, it needs to meet other fluctuating criteria as well. The only way to find the right monologue is to have read a multitude of plays that you can then pull from.
But Scott, what are the criteria that factor into a good monologue?
Well, Joren, I'm glad you asked. But before we get into that, today we're filming at the Red Curtain Arts Center in Marysville, Washington. And we're on the set of their production of Something Rotten, which actually happened last summer.
It's been up for a while.
A long while. So finding a monologue. Joren, what do you do when you're going to go to an audition?
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of your process for looking for a monologue?
Well, the first thing that I generally do is I consider the role that I'm going for. And so there is, that's a huge factor into what you want to sell yourself as, right? So if you're like, I want to be the lead in this play, and therefore I need to kind of present a monologue that shows me in the same kind of acting space as what the lead of the play will be in the play that you're auditioning for. And so if I'm going to look for a monologue, often I'm looking to find other monologues that match, right, the tone of the current monologue. And then from there I will read plays.
So if you're going to audition for a play, and let's be honest, because I think I know what the answer is going to be, and our people watching also. How often do you read the play that you're going to audition for before you audition?
Really low. I mean, I will try. I generally have a sense of it.
So we're looking for a monologue, right? We've done our research on the play. We've done our research on the company. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So now I want to find a monologue. What do I do? I think a lot of people go to Google.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people go to Google, the first couple of pages are all of the monologues that everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. Is that good? No. We're tired of seeing the same monologues. There's actually I think it's an unspoken list, but there is a list of monologues that as directors we're tired of seeing because we're guaranteed to see it at least once at every audition that we do.
Hamlet is all over the place.
Yeah, to be or not to be, stop it.
It's just yes, the monologue is compelling in the play Shakespeare, but the play Hamlet, written by Shakespeare.
And I want to hit on something that you mentioned a couple of times to make sure that people watching understand this, is that any advice that Joren and I give, you got to understand that every director is different, and every situation is going to be different. So we're kind of talking in broad terms, but there are going to be times when that monologue from Serpico is going to be exactly the way to go, or Star Wars, or whatever you want to do. That's going to be a good choice. Sometimes you can break the conventions in order to show yourself off at your very best.
Yeah.
So if you're really good at maybe playing subtle, playing things in a more cinematic type of way, and you have learned ways to translate that into stage work, maybe that is the best way to go. Just recognize that if that's how you choose your monologue, you're taking a risk.
Yeah.
So make it a deliberate risk.
Yeah. And that's all of the things when choosing a monologue. It's like a list of factors that go into like a total score, right? Like it's a final. And like when I'm rating actors, I actually will do it with scores and certain things where it's like this actor was X, Y, or Z number good at this factor. And I use that to create a little sheet. It's same thing works for monologues, right? You could be like, oh, this is a cinematic thing, and so it kind of takes away a little bit here. But because I'm just freaking killer at these other parts of it, it's still my best monologue for this choice, right? Which is a part of why we're talking about how there's all these different criteria that go into a monologue, right? And that's why picking a monologue is as complex as it is because it's a moving target, right? And so you want to have all of these different factors to be considered when choosing a monologue, because you will need to know sometimes when to break the rules, right?
Yep.
And I like you were saying earlier that like there's this built-in need or desire from an actor to shock in their monologue, right? Because they want to stand out. And sometimes that is exactly what you need to do, right? Because it will make you stand out. Sometimes you need to pick a safer one that fits in with your skill set. And
just nail it.
And just absolutely nail it. And knowing the difference between those is a sum total of knowing all of the different,
you got to know when to hold them. Know when to fold
know when to fold them. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So going back into this for finding your monologue, I would also encourage you to not go with monologues that are anonymous, that don't have a playwright attached to it, don't have a play attached to it, because those monologues a lot of times just don't have the depth of character, the depth of story that we're looking for. They might be really great for classwork, but they don't often carry the kind of the oomph that you need for your audition piece. So I'd recommend staying away from those. Also, because I know I do this in auditions all the time. If the actor doesn't include the name of the play or the playwright in their slate, then I'll ask them, oh, what play is this from? Especially if I haven't heard it before, and I want to find out. And if the actor says, if they say there is no author or I couldn't find it, then I tend to, even though it might be wrong, I tend to doubt their credibility a little bit. Because there's another thing that actors sometimes try to do when they're finding a monologue, which is they try to write their own. And I highly discourage writing your own monologue because a lot of times they don't have an end.
Yeah.
You just kind of go on and on and on, and then it fizzles, and then it affects your entire audition that way.
Yeah. Don't improv a monologue.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how good you are at it. Yeah. Evaluating a monologue based on its completeness just by itself is important. Another reason why there's value in choosing a famous monologue, if it's not cliche, is I, as a director, probably have already some context, right? And so I come with a little bit of, I know where this is going, and so I can get hooked easier.
Or I've heard about this play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff is potentially value. And if you don't have any of that, so if you choose something very obscure, right, which is not necessarily a problem, you want your monologue to have a hook at the beginning, right? You want your monologue to have some sort of intrigue in the center and then a conclusion at the end. It needs to be a 3-act play just in its...
Exactly. There's an arc to your monologue. The character ends up, even at the end of the monologue, they end up somewhere different than they started.
Yeah.
Which is why you don't want to choose a monologue that's like I remember the time.
Yes.
A reminiscing sort of, you're just sitting in your rocking chair on the front porch.
Yeah.
Telling about this thing that happened to your character before.
Yeah.
Because that's not an active monologue. There's nothing happening to the character. There's no urgency.
Yeah, you remove all the stakes.
Exactly.
From it, right? If this is in the past, then I don't really care. Whereas those monologues can work in a larger scenario because it's not just the monologue, it's the whole play, right? But when you are just doing the monologue, right, the goal is to hook us, show us something, and land the plane. Right. And it's harder to do that with passive monologues.
Yeah, and kind of what you were talking about, the reverse is also true. So let's say that you did the Shakespeare play. Yeah. And you loved it, and it was a great experience. You loved performing it. So then you choose your monologue from that play because you love it so much, whatever play it might be. But when you take the play out of context and you read it by itself, it doesn't make sense, or there is no impact. It doesn't offer growth. So you want to make sure that that monologue stands alone as a compelling piece of theater. Yeah. So you do want to know how it fits into the full play. Yeah. But can it stand alone and tell a story? There's a great monologue. There's a play called The Cemetery Club that I produced a few years back. Beautiful, beautiful monologue at the end about death and rebirth and like accepting the cycle and all that stuff. It's a gorgeous monologue. And you take it out of the play and it has no impact whatsoever. Because it's about the relationships of the characters that are on stage at that time. And without that, it's just kind of this free-floating people, just pontificating, but without any real consequence. Yeah. So like you said, it needs to have stakes. Yeah. There needs to be a purpose behind whatever monologue you choose. Yeah, I can't imagine any theater, if you were to walk into a theater and say, I'm interested in theater, but I don't know where to find scripts. Yeah. I can't imagine any theater going, too bad. Too bad. They're going to be like, here's a stack. Yeah. Come back, because for me, I've got 30, 40 scripts on my desk at any time that I haven't read yet that I want to. Yeah. And I'll be like, Joren, read these and tell me if they're any good. Yeah. Because I can't get to them all. Yeah. So
I'm the same way with, I've just got a pile of scripts to evaluate. Yeah. At any given moment, right? And so, if you go to your local theater company, they're going to have stuff probably to help you begin reading. And if you go to a company that's already producing plays, they're going to probably have an opinion on good and bad plays to help you, like, I really like this
what
play.
Works for their audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, we did really well with this play. If you want to read this play, we like it. Getting help. In that manner. That's just good advice for every piece of theater training everywhere. Like, doesn't matter what it is, go talk to somebody else and have them get input on your selections of monologues, right? This is true about everything. Like, you're going to do an audition, record yourself doing the audition, and then evaluate it, and have a friend evaluate it, and do the same thing with your monologue selections. Like, I'm thinking about doing these 5 monologues, right? Like, for over the course of. And someone will go, I really don't like this monologue because it comes across a little bad. It's just bad.
Right. It's bad for any number of reasons.
Any number of reasons. And they'll also say this one is good. And that's what you can do everywhere in any endeavor. It doesn't even have to be theater. This is just good advice for your life. Review your own work. Have somebody else review your work. Don't just do the work. You will improve 10 times faster if you have a little bit more of a reflection on yourself and with group and this is kind of a little silly to even say, but the evaluating, if you like a play and you like a monologue, that's a pretty good indicator that it's good, even the person with the lowest amount of drama instincts, where it's just not natural for them, all the different pieces, will like good theater, right? And so that's the easiest and the most simple test to start evaluating a monologue is, did you like the monologue, right? If you liked it, even if you don't know why you liked it, that's a good starting place, right? You go, I like this monologue. I'm going to make a note of that. I like this monologue. And then you can come back to it later and start doing a more in-depth analysis, or you can bring it to somebody you know can do the in-depth analysis if you're like, I like this monologue. Can you help me evaluate it? Right. If you have a Joren in your life, they would absolutely love to do analysis for you.
And who doesn't need a Joren?
Everyone wants a Joren in your life, right? Yeah. Here's my number up on the screen. You can call me if you need help. I am the king of segues. Oh, okay. Completely unrelated. I don't know why I'm putting this on film.
Is this a segue?
This is a segue about segues. Did you know that the CEO of Segway died on a Segway? The guy who owned the Segway company, right, and or invented it. I don't know. The facts are loose, just jostling around in there.
So he used a Segway to segue into the next life?
Yeah, he segued right into the next life. I think he went off a cliff or something on a Segway. Just a fantastic little tidbit. A little bit morbid. Sorry, we can maybe cut that out in post. All right, Chris or Layton will.
It's the key to this whole video. Is the Segway. Great.
Yeah.
So that's
Playing the point.
finding a monologue. So to review, a couple things to think about finding a monologue. First of all, read plays. Read lots and lots and lots of plays. A play is usually an hour and a half to 2 hours. I read an article recently where a theater scholar was saying that actors should be reading a minimum of 8 plays every week, which is not that much, really. It's 2 hours a day to read 7 of your plays. I would say if you can read at least 1 new play a week, something so that you get better at reading plays, you get better at cold reading, you get better at understanding characters and plot devices, and you'll start to recognize tropes and all of those things that are just going to help you. Mm-hmm. So I would urge you to set a goal of at least 1 play a week.
Yeah.
That you read.
If you don't have the time for that kind of thing, or you're way more casual about it, if you could just always be reading a play, right? Like you just have a play that you are reading, you read it when you have time to read it, is going to help you because you're always in the mode, right? If you're trying to be a working actor that's constantly working, you should be reading plays as much as you have time to. But if it's a more casual experience for you, but you could still just have a play that you're reading and then read it as you have time, because the easiest way to improve, right? The most straightforward path is to read more plays.
Right. So you understand the language. Mm-hmm. You want to think about your type. Get input if you're not sure what your type is. Find a monologue that you enjoy performing and that you feel a connection with, and that's going to show off the best version of you. Yeah. Look for a monologue that's appropriate for the role, for the company. Make sure that you're not pushing the envelope too far in your audition piece. Mm-hmm. Look for an active monologue. Not one where you're sitting on the psychiatrist's couch, reminiscing about the good old days. There's so many great monologues that are reminiscing monologues, but they're not compelling in an audition.
Yeah, as a standalone piece.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd say to summarize all of the different advices here, the idea is the audition is you trying to present your best self, and so you need to find a monologue that is a good platform to do that on, right? Because it is the base of your audition. The acting choices, all those kind of things stand on top of the monologue, right? So you want to identify your best self, what you do the greatest, and find a monologue that fits that, right? And therefore you can present your best self, and all of the different factors that we discussed that goes into that. And so, from there, read plays so you can find the monologue that is that, right? That's how it ties all in together.
That's how it ties all in together. So thanks for joining us.
Yep.
For watching.
Tuning in to the short or long version.
Yeah, the short or long version.
Whatever you happen to be watching.
Joren, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep. And let's do this again soon.
Real soon.
All right. Thank you.